If you want to know how to make sad and emotional melodies for Rod Wave in FL Studio, then keep watching. Hello, this is Nakul from Nakul Beats, and on this channel I make FL Studio tutorials where I give you tips and tricks that you can use to improve your music production. So if that sounds interesting, then please do hit that subscribe button now. Let's dive straight into the video. First off, since Rod Wave is an emotional rapper, we need a deep and full sounding piano that he can rap along to. So first up, I'm going to find a piano. Going into the channel rack where we can find the instruments, go plus. I'm going to find a piano that we can use. I'm going to go into a VST called Keyzone Classic. This has a lot of piano sounds. Furthermore, these beats are usually quite fast, so I'm going to increase the tempo as well to about 160 or 170. If you watch a lot of these kind of tutorials, you'll see a lot of people say that you have to make the chords first. Chords are just the notes that go under the melody, then make the melody on top of that. However, I'm going to tell you something different. You can also make the melody first, whatever comes to mind, and then put the chords underneath that. I'm going to pick this D and take the two notes that are next to it going down in the scale. So that would be C and B flat. I'm in the key of D minor. These emotional melodies also have a lot of space to them, so the notes can differentiate quite a bit and go over octaves. Usually a melody would just be within one octave, so that's a B flat to a B flat. However, in these emotional melodies, that can go to the next B flat as well. We'll see how the melody comes up. I want to leave some space before the next note. I'm going to put the metronome on as well, just to get a sense of the beats. I'm going to have a syncopated rhythm over here, just for one whole bar. Syncopated rhythm is when all the notes don't hit on the beat. So on the beat would be where the metronome hits, I'll show you. So every time the metronome hits, that's one beat. But if we go in between these, the melody can be quite interesting. This note over here is not on the beat, if you hear. It's in between, which makes the melody a lot more interesting. I quite like this melody, so I'm going to copy it into the next section, but I'm going to change up the notes a little bit, even though I might keep the same rhythm. This is done so I don't change so much that the melody becomes random, but I don't change so little that it's too repetitive. I'm going to increase this last note by a bit. I'm going to increase these two notes quite a bit, going over the second octave beat. So the melody is quite spacious now. I'm going to put some more variation in the second part and add two more notes. At the same time, the difference between this starting note and ending note is quite a bit, so I'm going to put another note just to compensate for that. However, if you hear the notes now, they sound very short and abrupt. So to change that, I'm going to press Ctrl L, which is a shortcut in FL Studio to lengthen out all the notes. I'm going to do this for this last two as well. Now it sounds a lot more full. One more tip that I'm going to give you that's going to get a lot more emotion into your beats is to add these accent notes. What these are really just short notes before the main note hits and give the beat a lot more variety and emotion. I'm going to do that same thing over here as well. I'll be doing that for a couple more notes as well, as I'll show you. So when the notes are quite far apart, I like to add the accent right then, just to fill in some of the space. Now I'm going to move on to the chords. Since we're in the key of D minor, I'm going to place this D note and make as many chords as I can around it. For example, this D could be the first note of D minor, it could be the second note of B major, or it could be the last note of G major. I'm going to start off by pretending that this is the last note of G minor, I mean. It's over here, like this. We're here for this only one chord. I'm going to do up something a bit different. Because these three notes over here sound quite nice with the melody. What I'm going to do now is just take this G and push it up one octave. What this does is makes everything a bit more spread out. I don't want this G to be too loud, so I'm going to drop it down a bit. Volume. I'm going to go back to focusing around that one note. I'm going to make this the second note of B major. So that's like this. I'm I'm gonna push these chords up one octave just to make it sound closer with the melody. For the last chord, I'm just gonna put D minor, just normally. Now to give the melody even more depth, I'm gonna take this, the root note of all the chords, and push it down one octave. I'm gonna reduce this though, the volumes of these. They seem to be too loud right now. Now what I want to do is change up the velocity of the piano notes. So if you hear in a lot of these emotional Broadway type of beats, to get emotion out of the melody, they change up the velocity of the piano quite a bit. What I'm going to do, press Alt-R, which is a shortcut in FL Studio to change up the volumes of the notes. I'm going to do it just for the chords and then just for the melody. Here there's a lot of empty space in this part over here. I'm gonna do something with the bass that's gonna be filling in those empty gaps. I'm gonna use that same step sequence that I told you about before. I think that's done with the piano melody. Now, but to add even more depth into the beat, I'm gonna put some of the chords into a pad instrument. Pad just gives it a lot more atmosphere. I'm gonna copy all of these chords. I quite like this so far. Also, I want the pad to have a little bit of variation to it. So instead of just having chords, I'm going to put arpeggios, which are broken chords. What broken chords are, just something like these, where you split up the notes of the chords into different places. I'm going to do the same for all of the chords in this pad. Vocal chops give a lot more emotion into the melody and are hence used quite a bit in rod wave type beats. This is a vocal chop that I found online. However, this is in the key of C sharp major, so I have to change it up a little bit for it to fit in my D minor beat. Furthermore, what I've noticed in these kinds of beats is they use a clap instead of a snare to go on every third count. Let's find a clap to put into the beat. Clap is usually just used for rhythm and to hold on to something while the beat changes. I quite like this clap 3, I'm gonna drag it in. The clap usually goes on every third count. I'm gonna tell you what that is. The third count of the bar, right in the middle. When I play the metronome, the third count is when the metronome hits the third time zone. That's where I played the clap, and that usually plays every bar. I'm gonna take that and copy it into every bar now. Also, a snare is usually used just to put on the syncopated beats. I'm gonna explain what those are in a minute. Snares are usually played on the syncopated beats over here, so I'm going to show you where that is. This is how they're usually used in trap beats. It's quite loud, I'm going to reduce the volume of it. I'm going to put one snare over here and put the double over here. Now time for the 808. I'm going to add in the 808 before the kick because this is a melodic beat and the 808 is an instrument. I'm gonna search for an 808. I'm liking the 808 one, so I'm gonna put that into a pattern. I want to use basically the same notes as the bass, but maybe with a different rhythm. Here I want another note playing, just for a bit of variation. And for the last one, I want a syncopated rhythm. I explained what syncopated is, so I just want these two notes here and here. The second part, I want the same kind of rhythm, but I want to change up the notes because the notes change up in the bass as well. What I'm going to do is just bring down these notes to what they should be. For these last 3 notes, I'm just going to pitch it up to an A. This is a transition note. I'm going to take this whole melody and pitch it down to a suitable octave for the 808. I'm going to mess around with the velocity later. for a kick pattern to complement the bass line. I want the kick to play whenever the 808 plays. I'm just gonna take kick 1. I think it'll be too congested if we put all the syncopated notes together, so I'm just gonna put 2 of them. And we're in the 808. I'm gonna copy this pattern into the next section as well. This is what we've got so far with most of the instruments. I'm actually gonna take out one of the notes because it seems too full right now. Take out this. Now actually, I think this beat could use 2 hi-hat patterns. One of them will be more spacey and allow the rapper to sing more on it. One of them will just be a generic 2-step hi-hat pattern. So let me just find out hi-hat. Now to get the generic 2-step hi-hat, I'm just gonna fill every 2 steps. It's gonna sound like this now. However, I don't want this to play throughout the song. For some bits, I want it to be a bit more spacey. I want this to be very spacious, so I just want one over here. I want to give it some bounce, so I'll put one before the clap. I'm gonna add some rolls in this as well, just to make it a bit more interesting. I'm also gonna mess around with the pitches. I'm gonna change around the pitch with this hi-hat, making it roll down. Quite like that hi-hat pattern. I'm gonna copy it over to the next section now. I'm even gonna press Alt-R just to make the velocities a bit more different. Pressing Ctrl-B. It's a shortcut to copy something over. This is the full product done. If you like this video, then feel free to check out another one of my videos. And this is the final product. This is what it sounds like.